When a government, which is elected by you or selected by you, is serving a society is always made of human beings. The governments suddenly decided that they are not serving a society, but they are creating an economy. Human being who reached here through what Montessori and Gandhi both call cooperation. This creature suddenly decided that one is superior to the other. Maria Montessori's idea of family, a family built by love rather than a family built by blood. And you cannot argue with your own child. Your child cannot argue with you. Everybody is very impatient. This impatience with each other actually ruins the family. This lack of self takes you to a position where you need some approval from somewhere.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Sketches Montessori School, I warmly welcome you to this online gathering of thought leaders, educators, and parents, as well as anyone who is interested in this meaningful and purposeful education. Today's discussion is centered on the theme Education for a Better World. We are honored to have Ms. Anuradha Shankar with us to share her thoughtful perspective on this subject. We will begin with a short talk by Anuradha ji, followed by Q&A session. Anuradha Shankar ji is a senior IPS officer who retired as the DGP of Madhya Pradesh. Beyond her distinguished career in policing, she has worked with UNICEF on child protection and education initiatives. She has long been a strong advocate for holistic education and currently serves on the board of the AMI, Association Montessori Internationale, Netherlands, supporting the growth of authentic Montessori education in India and around the world. Deeply rooted in Gandhian values, she has been actively involved in movements such as Ekta Parishad, Jai Jagat, and the Universal Solidarity Movement. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. Today's session will be moderated by Mr. Nishant Gupta, co-founder of Sketches Montessori School and a trustee of the Indian Montessori Foundation, AMI's affiliate in India. Nishant has been steadily working towards creating a community at Sketches that offers authentic Montessori education from early childhood through adolescence in Delhi NCR, a region where such access did not exist earlier. An engineer from IIT Delhi, and after having spent over a decade in the corporate world, he found his path in education through his journey as a parent seeking something meaningful for his own child. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded. Please keep your microphones muted to avoid interruptions. We would be happy to see you all, so please keep your cameras on if possible. Anuradha ji will take questions at the end, and you may share them in the chat. Once again, I welcome each one of you in this meaningful conversation. Over to you, Mr. Nishant. Thank you.
Thank you, Anushri. And a very warm welcome to all of you from my end as well. I'll start by setting the context for today's discussion, and then we'll hear from Anuradha ji. Education today is facing a deep crisis. Even as we achieve remarkable technological progress, reaching the stage of artificial intelligence, space tourism, gene therapy, we are also witnessing a steady erosion of human values and the very fabric of our society. In the materialistic worldview, education has been reduced to a pathway for employment and generating income, while its deeper purpose has always been to help children understand and live fundamental human values. It is essential to restore these values in our homes and education environments today so that children can receive the best of human experience and carry it forward to create a harmonious society. We are honored to have Anuradha ji with us today. Drawing from a lifetime of her own work, she will share her perspective on these fundamental values through the insights of two great visionaries in education, Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Maria Montessori. Both of them were nominated multiple times for the Nobel Peace Prize for their exemplary contribution to human development. Thank you so much for joining us today, Anuradha ji, and I hand over the forum to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishant ji. It's always such a pleasure and an honor to be with my Montessori community. I was a Montessorian in school, And that somehow there was something providential that I finally ended up working in a way with people who are creating Montessorians. And this is a great honor. Thank you so much. And the topic that you have given me to talk on is also something which I essentially keep thinking about constantly as I move about in the world, whether it is in India or abroad, because I keep going out of the country to talk about Mahatma Gandhi, his work, his values, and the crisis that the world is facing right now. Many of the answers are in Mahatma Gandhi. It is a telling point, Nishant ji, that you just mentioned, that both Mahatma Gandhi and Maria Montessori did not get the Nobel Prize, though they were nominated many times. It tells you a lot about the Nobel Prize and what it means, and how people get the prize. Anyhow, before I talk about the crisis that is there, I want to talk a little about both of them as human beings, as persons. Both are very different, very contrasting. Uh, Mahatma Gandhi comes from a very traditional, what we call the Vaishnavite background of Central India, of Western India, where his mother is particularly very conservative. He had a great influence. The greatest influence on him was from his mother, and then of course from his wife and some other women in his life. He was one man who was completely brought up by women, and he had mostly been influenced by women in the practical aspects of life. Intellectually, he had a few male influences also, mostly from outside, only a couple of people from India, but like Leo Tolstoy or, people like that, or John Ruskin. But he came from a conservative background, and he remained a kind of, in a way, traditional. It's very interesting that he himself was in the tradition, India's spiritual tradition. He had a great faith in India's spiritual tradition, and he actually tried to mold his own life in India's the inherited spiritual tradition of India. By contrast, Maria Montessori was an iconoclast. She did so many things which were revolutionary. Honestly, I think of her as a revolutionary, as an iconic woman. Who She was the first woman doctor in Italy. It's amazing that that in Europe, by that time, in western parts of Europe, northern and western parts of Europe, women were already becoming doctors. But in Italy, which is steeped in religion and tradition, she was the first. And this is very interesting to see that she also did not honor what is very typically traditional in an Italian society, the holy matrimony. And she had a child, and she had the courage to live with that child. She had the courage to bring up that child as a person who did not to whom it did not matter that he had only a mother. I mean, imagine this is so many years ago, before feminism probably was in its infancy. And so she was the original feminist in action. And sometimes I think that people who just speak on theory, and people who just give lectures on ideas, do not understand people like Dr. Montessori and Mahatma Gandhi, for whom the revolution is in practice. The change, the constructive work is in practice and not in just speeches. Of course, they gave speeches also, they wrote articles also, they wrote books also, but what they did was most important. So, though the two of them were so different, divergent in what they were as persons, there is a great similarity between them, that both of them, at the core of their thought, is decency, is cooperation, is being people of the citizens of the world. And here I want to start talking about what the world has come to today. It has always had villains. There's never been a time in history that a woman has not been raped, or a child has not been abducted, or somebody has not been killed. There's always been that. There have been people who have taken from other people. That's why we have got words for thievery, words for looting, words for any kind of travesty and crime in the most ancient languages. Words come through practice. When that thing exists, there's a word for it. before the book existed, there were no word for a book. So therefore, we know that these sorts of travesties of human life, the criminality in human personalities, have always been there. But as somebody told me the other day, that the bad people stood out because there were so many good people. Nowadays, good people stand out because there are so many bad people. Now, where did this get derailed? I'll not go too much into history or social history or anthropology, but I'll just give you a few small pointers of how our societies, the old societies of this world, by old societies I mean India, China, I mean the Asian societies, African societies, European societies, these were all old societies. People have been living there for thousands of years, and they have been constructing their cities and their villages and their lifestyles and their food habits, their clothing habits. All that has come through a tradition. Of course, the older world was also included the Americas, but unfortunately, there were people from overpopulated countries who went to the Americas, decided that it was empty land, killed human beings just as they killed buffaloes, and then they completely demolished the civilizations that were thriving there, and they all went and got pushed into reserves. So that is a very inhuman and part of human history, which I will not include in my talk today. I'm talking about the older world, which inherited some grace, which inherited some elegance from its traditions. And so, one of the biggest carriers of grace and inheritance is the family. And I as I just told you, I admire Dr. Montessori so much. So you can imagine that my idea of family is not what traditionally would be Mahatma Gandhi's idea of family. It would be more like Maria Montessori's idea of family, a family built by love rather than a family built by blood. And when you make a family by blood, it is restrictive, it breeds nepotism, and Mahatma Gandhi brought himself out of that. The greatness of Mahatma Gandhi was that he was able to go beyond his tradition, beyond what he had got, and then go out of it. Maria Montessori was a revolutionary, so she just cut the ties and did the different thing. So that idea of having a family of people who are yours, they might not be related to you, they might not even be of your own country, your community, maybe someday not even your planet. I do not know, people are planning to go to Mars. So this idea of family, which was very typical in the olden days, even those who are in their 50s would remember their childhood, where it was very natural, very normal to have uncles and aunts and and granduncles and grand aunts, and the marriage list. And it's not only in India. I have discovered after my travels that it's all over, even in Europe. When I meet the older people, they all remember these connections. Now, these connections made the child's world very big. It made the human palette very colorful, and that slowly shrank. How did it shrink? Why did it shrink? Somehow we decided to give ourselves up to our governments. I am a person who believes in big governments, by the way. I believe in universal healthcare. I believe in universal right to education. I believe in the right to work. But the power of the government should draw from the people. And here I would, some of you might have read, you might have heard of, Etienne de la Boutier, a French philosopher. He died very young. He died only when he was, I think, 32 or 33. And he wrote a book called, in English, it is called Discourse on Voluntary Servitude. It's a very thin book. If you haven't read it, it'll be good to read it, and you'll be stunned that this book, written by a boy of 26 years old in the 16th century, in 1576, this is much before, 200 years before the French Revolution, before the idea of nation came into people's minds. This book, this Discourse on Voluntary Servitude, will tell you how human beings cede or surrender their own agency to a powerful creation like a government. And nowadays, for us, I'll come to that, an even more horrible thing. Now, this government, which we elect, and in the parliament, and because of the parliament election, we are the people who, I mean, those people like me who got selected in the IPS in an elite haute functionaire position. Those people also are basically provided for by the people of the country, people of the whichever country they are serving. Those who pay direct or indirect taxes are looking after those people. But these people, instead of being public servants, they become government servants. And when they become government servants, this government becomes a kind of uh, creature which orders you and how to go about things. And as teachers, and especially if you are teachers in South Asia or Asia, you know very well how the government is so whimsical. One day they can decide, that the education will mean this, and the other day they can decide it'll mean that. And that is that the teachers are in a doldrum always in the government system. So this idea of completely being subservient to the government, that started the decay of the moral fiber of the society. The moment human beings who are different from, as I keep saying, many people have heard this before. Those of you who have heard me before know that I keep saying that the goat, the lion, and the humanoid, we all started together. But we have ended up talking on Zoom now. The goat and the lion are not. They are still there in the forest, hunting and being hunted. So, this human being who reached here through what Montessori and Gandhi both call cooperation, because this whole machine has not been made by one person. It's all through cooperation. And this creature suddenly decided that one is superior to the other. Whether it is superior in age, I'm superior to some child because I'm older than that child. I'm superior to somebody because I'm in a certain superior service. I'm superior because I can speak English. I'm superior because this, that, and the other. And then somebody is superior to me because of some skin color or something like that. So this whole idea of hierarchy, superiority came into being when we started this whole system of someone governing their own people. And this now, because the governments suddenly decided that they are not serving a society, but they are creating an economy. So there's this difference. You have to think about this. When a government, which is elected by you or selected by you, is serving a society, then it's serving a society. A society is always made of human beings. Good human beings, bad human beings, difficult human beings, easy human beings, but human beings. Now, the government is not really serving a society. Any government now, any government, I do not know, even the best of them are not serving. All of them are under pressure to create an economy, a dazzling economy. The moment you decide that your country, your nation, is an economy primarily rather than a society, that day you have lost it. Because you are an economy, it's all right, but that economy must be in service of the society. But here, the society is in service of the economy. So, country's greatness, or how wonderful a country is being measured through its GDP. And this GDP is decided by, governments and government agencies. And because of this GDP, the focus of the GDP, now what you want to do, you just want to see money there. And the interesting part is that the money that the government shows is not with the people. It's with some small cliques, some small, nowadays, the megacorps. And it is sometimes scary, the kind of power that these people have. The person who has given us you know, this convenience of talking on Zoom is quite powerful, but not powerful enough as the person through whom you just sit and search anything and find out. And then there is someone more powerful, and all this power does not come from any election or selection by the people. All this power comes because a couple of young boys got an idea about a kind of some algorithm, and then the government facilitated the capture of the algorithm by a small minority, and that minority decided that it's their privilege to own yachts, to own islands, to have spaceships, to make houses which are 40 stories high, and they're within their houses are swimming pools and car parks and helipads and whatnot. And this is with in consonance with government's economic policies, because their annual income, if they are living in India or in America or in Italy or wherever, or in Netherlands, their annual income, which is not shared with anybody, their annual income is included in the income of the nation. There is nothing that the nation gets from that, because even if they commit a crime, you don't know where to catch them, because they are amorphous, they are abstract. So this is the world we have slowly entered in, especially in this century, and it's nearly quarter of a century over now. Not nearly, really, literally quarter of a century is over. So in this quarter of a century, we have ceded our complete agency and our independence to this kind of amorphous monstrosities. And this is the scenario where now we want the child to function. The child must, I have a guest right now at home from Canada. She heads the Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Canada, and she's working with the First Nations of Canada. She told me a horrible story, and I said, I'm going to share it with my Montessorians today, because that will also make you question about what's happening. So since the British took over Canada, they decided that the Canadian First Nations, their Aboriginals are called First Nations, uh, those people who are called Red Indians in America, were called. Now they are called Native Americans. So the First Nations people was uncivilized, and so the Raj had the project to civilize these people. They decided that they could not remain civilized, or they could not be civilized, if they belonged to a family or stayed with their parents. So they were just taken away from their parents, put into residential schools, and in the residential school, I would ask you to go and search for this about the residential school tragedies. There's a beautiful report on BBC that I had read about residential schools, which the way the children were looked after, they could not speak their language, their food habits were changed, their clothes were changed, they were told to forget their parents, and then the worst thing was, if they were sick, they were allowed to die, and there have been now mass graves discovered in Canada over the last 10 years, 12 years, and these mass graves have children in it. And this is what the government, the controlling authority, decided in all good faith to do. So, this has been happening in not only in colonized areas, but also in decolonized areas, where people have just decided about what the children need, what the children want, and they have done this. This and how can this child who grows up, and Revaji was telling me that when these children grow up and we want to integrate them back into their, now there is this Truth and Reconciliation Commission in Canada, and they're trying to reintegrate them, but they are like their fundamentals are lost. They don't know how to be a parent because they didn't know how to be a child, and so they have got to alcoholism and all sorts of family discord, because family concept is not there, and all sorts of problems are there, and a couple of three or four generations have been ruined in that. I'm sure that there'll be a better time for Canadian native Canadians for in the next few decades or so, when this truth and reconciliation process gets further ahead. But this is the legacy that they have got. So this is what we get when we start interfering in that. And then, of course, I can tell you horrible stories about cyber crimes which people are committing with children. I don't want to talk about that because you know it, and it's a horrible thing to talk about anyway. We know about that, and so that all that has come to a situation where everything is cracking up. You can notice that in your own house also. If you there's a line beyond which you cannot argue with your own child. Your child cannot argue with you. Everybody is very impatient for various reasons. This impatience with each other is the place where, we actually ruin the family, this whole thing. And so now I want to come to, where this whole world, because of this ruination, because of this impatience, this irritability, and this lack of self, how this translates into extreme violence. This lack of self takes you to a position where, you need some approval from somewhere. Now, who are you getting this approval from? I'll come to I'll tell you about what Lynn told me about this. But before that, I want to tell you about what's happening in this world. And you know what happened in Gaza, or is still happening in Gaza. What is happening in Ukraine, and even Russia, because war doesn't spare anyone. And what is horribly happening, if you don't know about that, in Africa, especially in Congo and Sudan. Absolute horrors, and they are actually killing children. They are actually just killing children, because and especially the male child, because they think of that male child as a warrior, and the female child, what they do to her. So this situation is it is triggered by people who are who don't have a sense of self. And because they don't have a sense of self, they don't have a sense of family, society. And because of this lack of family and society, they need an identity. And this identity, if you know about the Rwandan crisis, do you know how they were separated? There's a Hotel Rwanda is an excellent film. If you haven't watched it, do check it out. Don't take children to see it, but I mean, it's the anatomy of the whole conflict. They actually measured people's noses and decided whose nose is a Hutu nose and whose nose is a Tutsi nose. Children's noses, adults' noses. And so if all of us looked from light brown to dark brown, and looked the same literally almost, and had curly hair, they would measure the noses to make them separate. So they just want some point of separation. This point of separation, which people have created, this has resulted in the wars. And here I feel that now we can come to what Gandhi and Montessori say together. Of course, I'm sure all of you know about that, but uh, I'll remind you of Gandhiji's visit to the Maria Montessori Center in London in 1931. And there's a beautiful conversation, give and take, that they had. I'll just read it. I really love their own words. So yeah, so he said, when he saw the whole school and all, and someone told Gandhiji that you should imitate Maria Montessori. So he said, not to imitate, but to assimilate the fundamental truth of your method. And she said in reply that I'm asking my own children to assimilate the heart of Gandhiji. But she was an Indian almost, so she knew how to address Mahatma Gandhi. So she said, assimilate the heart of Mahatma Gandhi. Now, this assimilation, this kind of give and take, this beautiful way of acknowledging each other and acknowledging each other's quality, this is the core of where Mahatma Gandhi and Maria Montessori come together. Now, how do they come together here? I have thought of a few points which I think that where they come together is, what does Mahatma Gandhi say? I mean, it's so similar actually. Mahatma Gandhi says, begin with the children. And he's talking constantly about a war against war. And he says that it has to begin with the children. And he said the real war against war, you have to begin with children to allow them to grow up in their natural innocence. Doesn't that sound like Maria Montessori? Allow them to grow in their natural innocence. And then he said that, and he actually acknowledged Montessori in this, and he says that the education should be for unity. And he's not talking about India's unity for independence. He's talking about unity between the human being and nature, he's talking about unity between human beings and human beings, human beings and the cosmos. So he says that the way to educate children is not with narrow nationalism, but with a global mindset. That's very Montessori, isn't it? He'll sound like Montessori actually. These are, I'm just giving you two, three small quotes from Mahatma Gandhi, and then we'll go to Montessori. And he of course talks about the natural development of the child, and he said, I see value in allowing children to develop naturally rather than through imposition of strict control, which is the root cause of conflict. This is absolute Montessori. Yeah, the imposition of strict control. He says no. And then I'll give you a few quotes from Montessori, and look how she sounds like Gandhi. She says that peace education, the word is peace here, peace education is the world's salvation. And of course, she says, the society currently educates for competition, which is a root of war. It sounds like Mahatma Gandhi. If you say that to any Gandhian, they'll say, oh, this must be a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. Peace, root of war, education for competition. And then she's talking about healing the heart, which all of you know about, the wounds of the human heart, and the producing a secure child, and from where the world peace will be built. Gandhi talks about, the child being the doctor of humanity, because the child is in its innocence and in her connection with the natural world, with everything around her, her control of herself, her agency within herself is the agent of peace. And so that is how a world peace could be built. Maria Montessori and Mahatma Gandhi both talk about self-directed and cooperative learning. Montessori has a method. Mahatma Gandhi did try to indigenize that method. You know about the Nai Talim method, which is the indigenization of the Montessori method. It's not very different from the Montessori method. So he indigenizes her Montessori method and includes some vocational training at the later stage, not at the primary stage, where it's just like a very bare bones Montessori, because Montessori's environment is very curated and it is very well done. But in the Nai Talim Bunyadi, because I had seen a Bunyadi school when I was a child, I didn't go to a Bunyadi school. I went to a Montessori because I came from a privileged background. But in my village, in the ashram where my grandfather had made an ashram, there was a Bunyadi school, and it had Bunyadi means fundamental, very fundamental kind of tools, and you could see that it was a kind of the rural and simple watering down or maybe adjustment of the Montessori method. So he didn't shy away from saying that he had learned from her. So that was also very self-directed and cooperative. But when the child grew up, it became a little vocational. And then Mahatma Gandhi's insistence was on getting something for livelihood, especially for older children, because livelihood is a major issue in a country like India. And I think he could see that the so-called welfare state of India is not really going to be a welfare state, and there's going to be very little state support for poor people. And so I think he did that. Vocational. His focus on vocational was a little more because of that. But what is more important is that they talked about mutual respect between not only between children and adults, but between the whole the universe and the child. This mutual respect, the innate goodness of the child, and the cooperative versus competitive. And this, I think I have talked every time that I talk to anyone, I keep harping upon this: cooperative versus competitive. Competition is going to take you nowhere. And this competition, this materialism, breeds competition. Materialism has to breed competition. And I remember that there used to be these ads which showed children who came first in the school, first in the class, and we actually opposed it. Some of them were taken off, some of them are still there. But this whole world inundated with advertisements, with visual attacks on all audiovisual media, completely, push people into competition. And this whole competitive atmosphere has to breed the kind of silos that we are now caught in. But Mahatma Gandhi and Montessori both are talking about, human beings being basically cooperative. And it is so true. If anybody argues with you that it isn't, please ask them that anything that they are wearing, anything, any dress that they're wearing, a shirt and a trouser, or a sari, or a dress, or whatever, glasses, rings, whatever, nothing has been made without cooperation. Nothing. And so this the core of human existence, the core of human society is cooperation. And children are cooperative. Of course, they are a little, they can get, yeah, annoyed with each other. They can but the competition in children is only built through ingraining competition in them. Basically, they are not competitive. That Maria Montessori has said, that Mahatma Gandhi has also said, and we have seen this in real life. So I personally feel that the method, that the way to really get this world working towards peace uh, is at the thought level, uh, on the path of Mahatma Gandhi, yeah, in personal life, uh, Maria Montessori in the school, because honestly, Mahatma Gandhi in personal life means that you will remember that your greed, uh, your desires can take away from someone, and you don't want to be a thief. So, Mahatma Gandhi in personal life is always better than any other philosopher, because he tells you that you have what you want, but remember that whatever you want, and the freedom to have what you want, must end. As I reminded my friends in Chennai last time, must end where my nose begins. So you are free, but don't come and break my nose. So this kind of a kind of deterrent to your greed is important to build a society which will be equitable. The society will not be equitable very easily, I must tell you that, because there are people who are now, I'm very sorry to say this in this meeting, but there are people I have discovered through in my career that this there are people who are totally immoral. So you know about moralistic people, you know about immoral people, but there are people who are immoral. So they have no moral paradigm. They are not even, I sometimes feel that they are some other species rather than Homo sapiens sapiens. Because they are Homo sapiens sapiens, so there is thought there, but Homo sapiens sapiens also developed feelings, also developed analysis, also developed critical thinking, also developed love. They also have love. So they have nothing of that sort. So they have got lots of brains, they can make lots of things, and then that's it. Then there is this physical pleasure. They have this atavistic, elemental pleasure element in them. And these people have been very wronged children, I personally feel. They've had a bad childhood. Of course, one of them says that he has been to a Montessori. I do not know what Montessori he went to and why he could not ingrain those values in himself. But these are the people who the youth of the whole world want to emulate. Now, this emulation will breed competition. Where we have our role is by being, loving people ourselves, by being sharing people ourselves, by having a kind of Gandhian way of living ourselves, we are able to create this. Because I'll tell you one thing: if you're one thing at home and another thing at work, at your squad, your work is one of the most noble works. You're a teacher. I mean, like you're a maker of human beings. So when you go to work, you're actually carrying a bit of your home with you. Whatever you think, it's not separate. So when at home you're not able to share your space, your life, and what your wherewithal with your whoever is at home, you know, and especially in older societies. Now, Europe has nearly become Americanized, and so Europe, I have seen Europe not living mostly with grandparents. Many of them are still living with grandparents, especially in Southern Europe. They are still living with grandparents, but mostly they are not. But in Asia, we are still living with grandparents. We are still living with relatives. We are still visiting relatives or meeting relatives. If they are not included in your periphery of family, in your perimeter of family, then you are not going to carry that to the school. You have learned a method in your 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 12, whatever courses you have learned. There are courses it's just rote learning, and it's a program that you're carrying on. Programs will take you nowhere. Unless it is imbibed, unless it is taken inside, it's not going to take anyone anywhere. So therefore, the question that we need to ask ourselves is that, are we really the people who we are looking at these children and trying to create that person? Am I that person? Because one of the earliest things that a human child does is copy an adult. And so the copying of an adult is both what is expressed and what is subliminal. Montessori talks about this, the personality of the teacher also. And Mahatma Gandhi keeps talking about, the cleansing of the self, the developing of the self. And it's a long process. It just doesn't come like that. It just, you're not just, one day you're just going to get up and become this Mother India. No. And you don't even have to be Mother India. You just have to be a human being, warm, loving human being who, logically, rationally realizes that it is important to cooperate and it is dangerous to compete. This has to come to you rationally, not only emotionally. Emotionally, you know that it feels good to have good friends and a good circle, but rationally also you have to see that it's much better. It makes a better world. Because my son was warning me yesterday, and I told him that don't scare me, but he said that there are these people who have now made armies, the megacorps that I was talking to you about, the monstrous people. They are now making armies of, they have already, one of them has already put a chip in his brain, and they are making now armies through this uh, uh, drone armies and robotic armies. And they're doing this. China has already rolled out 500 robots to work in a factory. It can bend from anywhere, and as it can also make a car, it can also break a car. So these are things which these people are doing. Are we going to have a world full of such people? And if not, then first we need to cleanse ourselves. First we need to make ourselves the simple people that we want, the simple loving people that we want our children to be, our students to be, and then we can go ahead from there. So these were my thoughts. I just shared my thoughts about these. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anuradha ji, for sharing your thoughts on where we are headed and how we can make a better world for us and for our children. So I think these uh, pointers were very useful for all of us to listen to, because this gives you a broader picture. Often we are only concerned with our limited worldview, and that begins to shape how we help our children. Whereas it's important to look at this from a bigger vantage point and understand the source of all this strife and conflict, and how we can help children see the world for what it is, and take us towards a better future. So, what we will do now is take questions from the participants who have something to ask. And there are a couple of questions that were also submitted in advance of this session. So, I have those here with me, so I can read out a few, and then we can take some questions from the chat as well. Now, I know there are many parents also who are among the audience here, who are sending their children to Montessori schools, or schools that do not base their education system on cutthroat competition and using that as a lever for helping children progress. So, for in that scenario, there is always this question that arises in people's mind, that if the child is going in an environment where education is value based, where they are learning to cooperate before they learn to compete, are they going to fall behind in this ruthless world when they try to find success for themselves? And I want to ask you from your experience as an IPS officer, having seen people, I'm sure, from all walks of life, also those who are good to the society, those who are bad to the society. Where do you see this aspect of training somebody to become competitive so that then they can be successful? Because that's the crux, right? That's the how the entire education structure operates today. We are training you to become successful, and we are training you to become competitive.
So I think I want to ask one question, and it's a rhetorical question, so you need not answer it. It's what is success? You know, what is success? So what happened was that there's this story that their father had four children, son, daughter, and the most useless one, who didn't study very well, who went to school but failed, he stayed at the village at the farm, and the daughter got married, went to her in-laws place. Two sons did very well, and they got jobs in some big city, maybe Bangalore, Hyderabad, and the father remained in his village in maybe UP or wherever. And he that old useless son, he got married to some village girl and stayed with him. And when the parents got very unwell and old, nobody else had time but that useless son with him. So who is the successful one? I mean, honestly, what do you want? Do you, as a parent, want just your child to do something, go somewhere and be there, and be a medal on your chest that my son or my daughter is doing this? The problem with parenting sometimes is that we are not looking at children as part of your family, but as your family, but as an extension of yourself. The moment you look at children as an extension of yourself, you push all your dreams, whatever you were not able to do. I wanted to be an actor, so I will ask my son or daughter to be an actor because, I could not be that. I mean, nobody wants their children to be actors, honestly. Only when they don't do anything else, they go and become actors. But, I mean, I just said that offhand. But, but really, I wanted to go become a doctor, and I didn't do very well in bio. So when my child is growing up, I'll have two or three coaching, one for zoology, one for botany, and one for whatever, organic chemistry, and then somehow get the child into some medical college, sell my jewelry, sell my land, and put them in medical college. What does it mean honestly? And after that child gets educated, what does it mean honestly to you? What is important is that do you have, that's why I keep harping on family. Do you have a family? What is a family? The family is a collection of people who love each other, who care for each other, who have each other's backs. That is family. And it might sometimes be your own children. It might be, somebody you met on the metro and, had a good bonding with. It's very fluid. But your own child, with whom you have enough agency to look after that person as it grows from early infancy into childhood into adolescence, you have the chance to give those values, which value will make that child value a family. You understand that? The value of a family. So when you give the child the value of a family, and and you cannot give the value of the family. There's a very good story by, I think, I don't know, maybe Edgar Allan Poe. I don't remember the name of the writer, but some American writer. That there's this. I like to tell stories, and you can tell these stories to whoever you want to. So this child, the father noticed that at dinner time he just hides some bread into his coat, sleeve. And he saw this for a week or so, and then he followed the child. The child used to go up the attic. There was an old blanket there, and he put that bread under the blanket. And so one day he caught him and he said, "What are you doing and why are you doing this?" He said, "Papa, I'm putting this away for you." I said, "Why are you putting this away for me?" So he said, "When you grow very old, and my wife, when you ask for extra bread, and my wife says that this old man is eating up all the bread in this house, I will give you this bread. And when you feel very cold and you ask for an extra blanket, and my wife says that honestly, how many more blankets do you need? And so then I'll give you this blanket." So the father immediately realizes what he and his wife are doing to his father, which the child is watching. So the child is preparing for the father's old age. I mean, basically, the child is telling the father that this is what you're doing to my grandpa. You and my mom are doing to my grandpa. So it's a beautiful story. It's very old. I think it's a early 20th century story. What i what i want to say through this story is that you are exemplars of your child, and in the family, are you looking at yourself 30 years hence, 40 years hence? You have to look as a parent, even as a teacher, you have to look at yourself 30 years hence, 40 years hence. What are you going to ask your child for? What does your I mean, if you think that you're fine and you'll have some robots looking after you, and you'll ask for some drones to deliver stuff to you, then you're a good guy. You're having a good time. I have nothing to say to you. But if you're looking at a human society, which was still just about a couple of decades ago, it was a human society, and it's within 20-25 years it has like come to this point. So we have to the competition doesn't take anyone anywhere. Make a community, make a family. You think that the child won't be successful because you're looking at earnings. And in India, the typical thing is package. He or she has got this package. What does that package mean to you? Honestly, what does that package mean? I mean, is that package subsistence level? I mean, how and see how much that package is taking away from you in human terms. If it is a very big package and takes your child to some other country. Now, look at the way our youth who went and built the United States of America as an IT giant, look at how they are being kicked out of there. So your child to be used by some other corporate, to be used by some other, a money maker who's going to make much more through your child's labor. I'm not saying they should not do it. I'm saying you should have a clear concept of, it's okay if the child is able to do it. It's okay if the child is not able to do it. Don't make your child a psychotic case, where the child is constantly under the pressure to perform and not able to live, not able to sing, not able to dance, not able to write a poem, not able to make a painting, not able to notice the new rosebud in your garden, or a little money plant, the fresh leaf on your money plant. I mean, does the child notice the colors and the smells and the sounds and the taste of the world? No, because the child is constantly in this speed, so that you have to ask these questions. And I do think that it doesn't really matter. Around me and in the whole Gandhian circle that I see, people are not so bothered about their children's success, and the children are doing quite okay. They are not bad. I mean, they are able to live a good life. I mean, I don't know if you want to have a watch which says a different time because it is 3 lakh rupees. I don't know about that. I really don't know about that.
Right. I'll read out another question now. So this is a question from a parent. You're probably the eldest person I've seen who has studied in a Montessori school. Would love to know more about your personal experience if you would like to share that, particularly how it shaped your adult life. And I see a similar question written up as well, which says how someone's childhood shapes their personality and thought process in later stages of their life. So probably they want to know a bit more about your journey and what brought you here, and being a Montessori child.
Yeah, being a Montessori child is important. So I had two advantages: being a Montessori child and being brought up in a Gandhian household. So both are very advantages. So first, the Montessori child. So we had a very nice big school, and because of my father's job, we were transferred. So I went to actually two Montessoris. I started in we had these three classes: Montessori one, Montessori two, Montessori three, and then after that you would go into the main school. Then the main school was main school. I mean, it was a convent school, but it was, how schools are, but they were still very nice. But the Montessori was like fun. I mean, all that I remember was just good fun. I also had a little patch of a garden in my second Montessori, not my first one. I think I was too small. And the second Montessori, I had a small patch. I think I must have been four or something. And you don't really remember things when you're from your age of four, but I remember because it was such a beautiful garden, and we had planted as everybody had planted something, and I planted something which I did not like very much, unfortunately. The seeds that I got were bhindi, okra, and I don't really didn't like it. And now I'm okay with it, but as a child I just didn't like bhindi. And when they grew and this long things came up, and I said, "What is this?" They said, "This is bhindi." I said, "Oh no, I have failed myself." So because of that, I remember, because it grew bhindi and some marigolds. So it was a beautiful experience because we touched earth with our own hands, and I think the sisters crafted in. I was in Notre Dame, the Montessori run by Notre Dame sisters, and it was beautiful. And they crafted it in such a way that it was very local. So we did gardening, we had little garden patches, and then of course the environment was there, which was so colorful. With I always, whenever I think of school, beginning school, I always think of that beautiful, uh, colorful rooms, which were not really classrooms. I can't think of them as classrooms. It's an environment. So I had good fun, and we had an Anglo-Indian. We used to call her Miss, but teacher. She was a Montessori teacher, Mrs. Callahan. Now she's no more, bless her. She was a very loving and caring person, and she was a storyteller. So the whole day was just stories, and we would go and hang on her frock, and she used to wear those old-fashioned frocks, and we had a lovely time. So Montessori was one of those, and I personally feel that because of that joyous beginning, I have. Somehow I just don't think of too many problems in my life, although I mean you might think, and if you look at my police CV, you will see that I have a gallantry medal, so that I must have done something for that, some operation. I did an operation against some extremists and unearthed a weapons factory, and that's how I got it. So but even then, and in the biggest law and order, and I was in we joined in 1990, and you know what happened in 1992 in India. And after that it was so wrought, and in this area, because of the mixed population, was always hot. And so, but somehow I credit it to my childhood and my education in Montessori, where you are very unfazed. You know that there is this situation, and you have to find a solution, because you grow up finding solutions. There's nobody suggesting anything to you. No suggestions are coming from anyone. You're doing it, maybe a little bit, a nudge here and a nudge there, but you are able to do that. So that was one important thing. The other thing which was very important was my Gandhian upbringing, which gave us a very combined motley crew at home. People kept coming from this country, that country, this province, that province. I did not know the caste of anyone. It didn't matter who was it. This was a mama, this was a chacha. I mean, your uncles, and this was Mosi, this was Bua. They were not related to me, but later on I discovered they didn't even belong to the same area. But that is how I grew up. So this gave me a way to connect with people just as they are, without asking their background, without knowing who they are, and just connect and talk. And so that's how I learned to talk to people, very with ease and not with any preparation, because you don't need to prepare to talk to family you know so if you have a huge family which encompasses the whole of planet Earth, then you don't need to prepare for anything. I didn't prepare for this. I never prepare for anything. I just speak what my heart says at that point. Yeah. So these two things were a great advantage.
Right. And in terms of understanding the role of childhood in shaping the future personality of an adult, when you see individuals from your work with the police service, and how sometimes a bad situation in childhood then creates a bad situation later in life, is there something that we could learn from that experience?
Yes. So in the police anywhere in the world is a
Mhm.
regulatory organization. So it's not a liked organization. It should not even be liked, because it infringes on people's human rights. In India, it is even worse. It's a terrible organization in India, because it comes from the colonial legacy, and so it has this idea of controlling people, and it works through fear. It doesn't work through faith. Whereas, like in Britain, police works through faith, you know, and in India, it works through fear. So in this fear which is created needs people who are not very functional in social situations. I think. And so somehow people who are, especially at the cutting edge level, and in India we have a very hierarchical way of recruitment, and I got recruited at that level where I don't have to go down to the ground. But at the ground level, we have people who are not nice people, and they haven't had very nice childhoods. Mostly people does they don't, I mean, and they come from those backgrounds which are which again, there's this competition. They want a government job. They just want a government job, and they can become malaria inspectors or police inspectors. So which are two completely divergent jobs. In one you have to go and kill mosquitoes, and here you have to actually protect people. But the same people might give both the exams. So there is this problem of people who just want to get through into a job through competition, because government jobs are attractive not for the service that they provide, but for the privileges that they have. A government job gives you a lot of privilege, a lot of cover, and especially for people who are corrupt at heart, who want to make money in any which way. For them, a government job is a very good, very safe place to operate from. So the police has this problem, and their childhood has been not, and most of them. I mean, I have talked to them, and they have had bad schooling. They haven't got the right value system in the schools, because many of them have come from schools which did not have teachers, or which had teachers who didn't care. They just gave them, you learn this, go give the exam. These are the keywords. You must write these keywords in your answer, and then you'll get the marks. You know that, how those teachers work. So they usually education. There was no education really. I don't consider that education. I consider that a kind of literacy and numeracy. So there's literacy and numeracy, and they haven't had a person. And that's I want to mention something which Lynn told me when I was preparing for my Rome meeting. I asked her if she had some ideas about education which she would want me to talk at that stage. So she said yes. One part, she told me many things, but one thing which is very important, which she talked about, was that there should be one person who listens to you in the school, at the school level. The child must feel that there is at least one person who listens to you. And this, if I have asked so many people after she told me this, I asked so many people that did you feel in school that there was one person? Only a very few people told me that yes, there was this teacher who was to whom I could talk. No, 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 there was no one. So lots of people feel alienated. And this alienation creates this kind of personality in which, it's easy to hurt anyone. And that's what the police does, in our country at least. It hurts people with impunity, and nothing happens.
Right. I also see there is some further comments in chat, I think related to the example that you gave of this boy in the village who stayed back to take care of his parents, and I think this point is around moderation in our approach towards what the competitive society expects from us, because you have to survive, you have to make your ends meet, and then they're pointing out that maybe this person has to take support of his brothers who are living in the city earning to get the money to support the treatment of his parents. So there is this need to earn your living in the competitive world, where you have to seek a job and run a business, etc., and then use that money to take care of yourself and your dependents.
Actually, I know more than a dozen these useless sons who have lived in the village. They have not been supported by any brother or sister. They have tilled the land or done whatever their father was doing in the family, lived in very, meager means. And after their brothers have retired from their jobs, they have gone back to the village to claim their land. I've seen that. Unfortunately, I'm very sorry that people who are in the competitive mode uh, have no end to their greed. They have no end to what they want. So even after the useless brother stayed at home, just looked after the land, then these people who have made a house in the city, they want to go back to the land and want a part of the agricultural land which belonged to their father or grandfather. I have cases on that. When I said that story, it was from real life. So this is when I say it's a story, it's not really a story. It's always from real life, because these are cases which I have mediated or done some legal work on. So this is this balance that people ask for competition. The problem is, don't bring up your child for competition. What you're talking about is a competitive exam. That is not competition. That is a selection exam which people are going to give. That selection exam for engineering or medicine or whatever should not become the be all and end all of that child's life.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, I have absolutely nothing against giving an exam and getting through. I mean, when we go in many institutions, there are entrance level tests, and you get the entrance level test. You get it, you don't get it, you get in a different institute. Excuse me, pardon. So, but, you need to understand that this competition, you do not need to bring up your child that you are going to the IIT, send that child to Kota or wherever you want to send that child to, and you don't care if the child is even committing suicide because of that. Do you know how many suicides are committed in Kota? Please search on that in the National Crime Record Bureau suicides. How many young people die? And they push that the parents have this whole idea of there is too much population, therefore you have to push your child. I'm very sorry. There has been a lot of research on this. Please see, and if you want, I'll share some research with you, Nishanchi. You can circulate it. There has been a lot of research that this cannot work.
And there's just one final question, and then we can close the meeting. And what are the key points by which we can encourage Montessori education in today's world? What are the key?
Yeah, I have been talking about taking Montessori education to Anganwadis for a long time, and we have already started it in some areas. Our Chandigarh friends are doing it in a district, and
Right.
and then some in Andhra. And we need to do it. We need to make it. I mean, I do feel that we should do enough advocacy. I'm trying to do it so that the 0 to 3. Uh, those people who handle Anganwadi workers, the rural women, they learn how to actually start with looking after a child, and they can teach the parents rule, because whatever said and done, India is a rural country, and unless you touch people in those places where the maximum population lives, the impact is going to be the biggest accusation that is on Montessori. And it is so sad, because she never meant it, is that it is elitist. Montessori was one humanist uh, educator that we know from the last century. She's really the greatest humanist. And because though she is a humanist, we think of her education system as an elitist. That's such a
Yeah.
tragedy. So we have to get that opinion changed. And that's why this is one thing which I feel that the Anganwadis should, all the Anganwadi workers should be trained as Montessori, trained by Montessori. The other thing is in the primary level schools also. I think if we could have some Montessori methodology, at least in the primary level school. I do not know how the government or how the parents are even going to react to higher level, because then again the monster of competition is right there. People are really convinced. When people are convinced about something, you can't do anything. It's become a kind of article of faith that there has to be a competition. So it's fine. Let them go with that. In a few decades, when there'll be almost no jobs, I do not know what they're going to compete for. So that's a different scenario.
Right.
And human beings always adjust to scenarios. But the primary education also needs to have the Montessori approach, because I have benefited from it personally. My sisters have, my brother has, and we have seen all this. And we have, and I personally feel that if you want to make a better world, if you want to bring peace in the world, if you have, I mean, but you also have to analyze what mistake you did to make the Amazon monster. But but you have to Montessori. I feel that it also should become a little more contemporary, and there's a lot of research going on, and I'm very happy with this. When we sit at in the AGM in AMI, I noticed that there are lots of people doing a lot of good research on Montessori in the contemporary times. So the contemporization of Montessori is also an important part, and the localization of Montessori is also an important part. Montessori has given a very good overview, a very good umbrella, but you need to make it local. In fact, what works in North India might not work in South India. What works in Eastern India might not work in, like, I mean, I had a little garden. That garden might not be important in Ladakh. So these sorts of things. So we need to do that, and I am there for whatever you think I am
Right.
useful for. I would love to do that.
One of the things which is a very key part of this movement in education is the preparation of the adult and the educators who imbibe these values and this way of being with children, which makes a big difference, right? So that is something that the entire education system can learn from. So we talk about public education, but then there is private education, which also forms a very big chunk of school education in India, where most of the parents and teachers who are on this call to their children have access to. So for these systems also, there is a need for a larger transformation of educators and how they look at children and they work with them. So
Yeah,
there is
yeah.
a reform needed there as well, is I think
Very,
another.
very important. And you know what? I feel that whatever, even if it's a private school, that is also not out of regulation from the government.
Yeah.
There is a regulation. So that regulation can be done. And so the place where, and because in the beginning only I told you about how the government has everything in their hands. And we have seceded to the government that way. So fine. I mean, we have to work right now within this system. I am always hopeful that things change, and they do change. So right now, so then the government should also we and whenever I talk to the education secretary or someone like that, I always tell them that when you regulate the private schools, are you actually giving them some basic parameters? That you're talking of IKS and all these things, but are you giving them basic parameters of making good human beings?
Yeah.
Eventually what you need is a good human being, and they say yes, 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 we do this, we do that. I mean, they don't even have we used to have, as children, we used to have moral science classes. Nobody knows moral science classes anymore for the last, I don't know, 20 years or so. So, but I'm not saying that you have moral science classes, but I told them, so they are, as far as I can do it, we keep doing that, and all of us should do whenever we meet people who are at the regulatory level in education. We must, and so private schools also need to have this regulation, at least as I said, at the primary stage. We at least there. Later on, I mean, we can't have control, or we can't have take our suggestions everywhere. Let's start, and when they see the advantages of that, then they can continue it later. Somebody has also asked about the advantages of Montessori methodology when compared to basic education like CBSE, ICSE. CBSE, ICSE is not basic education, honestly. I'm sorry. It's just education for, just a degree which will, it's not education. I went to ICSE at the time when ICSE had two English papers, two history papers, and those kind of things. You really, really studied, and the exam went on for a month. Nowadays, you just go give an exam, come back, and you get 100 out of 100, 98 out of 100. I mean, how do you do that in a language paper? What do you do? What are you asking? So this is not education. It's rote learning, and you have lots of parrots. And the teachers also, as I said, give them keywords. And
Yeah.
this kind of situation, it's going to come to a cracking point. It has already come to a cracking point. My daughter is a professor, and she says that when children come, they can't write one full sentence of English. They don't know where it begins, where it ends. And this is because, and English or Hindi or Telugu, whatever, they don't have language skills. Numeracy is the only thing they acquire, because that is something which, plus minus, they also probably take a calculator to their example. So this is the situation, and in which Montessori is a game changer. The method of Montessori is a game changer, and the sooner the government realizes this, you know I think, or the regulators realize this, I think the better things will come. And that time is coming, I'm telling you. You'll
Yeah.
soon see an influx of people coming back from the IT industry, and they really have nothing to do. They have to imagine new things, and the government has to rethink about this, about preparing human beings.
When a lot of people look at education, they tend to equate it with boards or CBSE or ICSE. But I think that's not what education is. Education is about supporting the child's development in the right way. And Montessori provides that framework and the pedagogy, along with the right framing of the educators to make that happen, right? So this prepared environment, prepared adult, and the child. So when you bring all these three things together, you are doing the right thing for the child. At the end of that education process, when a child finishes it by the age of 16, 17, 18, they have acquired skills that are necessary to write exams and sit for competition and so on. So if it is a CBSE exam, a child will be able to appear for it and clear it. So this idea that somehow this education is not going to let them become academically competent is also a very big myth that exists.
I'm right here. I'm right here.
Yeah.
I mean, and not, I mean, not only me, there's a whole ecosystem which all of us went there, and all of them, I mean, are doing very well. We have lots of civil servants, IITians,
Right.
doctors from my school, and they did well. And of course, later on, because of government pressure, I think slowly it just, everywhere, the older Montessoris, and also these old teachers, they passed away. They could not find new teachers. I do not know what happened. I didn't ask the sisters, but things
But
happened.
we are seeing a revival of it now because even
Yes,
people
yes,
from, let's say, I would say my generation are going and asking for these solutions because we
yeah.
need to bring these ideas back. Otherwise, we are going to keep
Yeah.
sending children to these institutions where they would.
Because my mother went to a Montessori. My mom went to a Montessori. I went to a Montessori. So because I used to, during my mom's time, earliest Montessori started in India, in the 1950s. So
So we'll draw this discussion to a close now. Thank you so much, Anuradha ji, for your time. But before we close, I would also make one quick announcement. Indian Montessori Foundation, we are a pan-India body, a voluntary organization, bringing Montessori practitioners from all over India together. And we are organizing a conference in Mumbai next year on January 23rd and 24th. Anuradha ji will be a keynote speaker at the conference, and then we have many other speakers, Montessori educators from all over the world coming for 2 days in Mumbai. And we are extending invitation to the wider community, parents, educators, whoever has interest in understanding education from a deeper lens, a meaningful, purposeful education is invited to attend. I think one of the team members has also posted the link to IMF's website in the chat. And we would be really happy if you would attend the conference, become a supporter of the conference, and meet us there. So thank you so much for your time. And we hope to continue these engaging conversations with various speakers and thought leaders in education. And Anuradha ji will hope to invite you one more time for speaking with us. And thank you for taking the time today and sharing your valuable insights with us.
thank you, and so many people have given their good feedback. Thank you so much for your positive feedback in the chat box. I was just going through it very quickly. I just saw it properly because it becomes dissonance when I look at you and then look there. I just saw it while you were talking about the conference, and thank you. I'll be there at the conference, hopefully both the days. And you're always such, you give me so much power by appreciating whatever I say, and hope to have more conversations with all of you in person. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.